Welcome to episode 75 of the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Sense, and we're going to talk about the 5th Friday Fest, which is taking place on May 29th, representing a key regional collaboration between Dave Willems, the curator of the Appleton Mile of Music Festival, and Eric Krueger, managing partner of the Crystal Ballroom in Hilbert. The concert acts as an expansion of the Mile of Music Presents series and brings original independent live music into Calumet County's historic 1928 dance hall. And today I'm sitting down with Dave and Eric inside that dance hall, the beautifully grand venue that is Calumet County's Crystal Ballroom. And we're going to talk and explore the 5th Friday Fest events organization, logistics, and its long-term significance for the local music community. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
So I'm going to open this to both of you. And I don't, Dave, if you want to maybe answer it first. What originally inspired the partnership between Mile of Music Presents and the Crystal Ballroom? And how does this 5th Friday concert fit into both of your organization's missions?
Yeah, well, I think the 5th Friday thing was something we created as there's typically, 3 or 4 5th Fridays in a year, obviously. And so the idea was to create something that, address 2 or 3 of those over the course of the year. So we did one in January, we're doing one here, possibly do one later in the fall, or do a different day perhaps in that based upon where it falls. But we initially, I think, made the connection. Eric has several bands, does original music himself, and was performing at one of our other spaces at Gibson Community Music Hall in Appleton. And I think as part of a conversation mentioned that he and Dana were taking over the ballroom and going to be operating it with a variety of different programs. And one of the things they were interested in was live music. And we have, I think, since year 3 or 4 of Mile, this is the 13th year, but I think since early on, had a vision for a series called A Mile Down the Road, where we would take the vibe of the festival, the vibe of the original music scene, on the road to other spaces around the Fox Cities and around, even at some point, potentially Wisconsin. And so, when he mentioned that they were doing that, it was the bells kind of went off right away, and we kind of started the conversation.
Eric, from your perspective, how did this whole thing come about?
Dave summed it up well, and myself being a musician and taking over this facility 3 years ago with my wife, who has a background in the arts as well. She's on the dance side, me being on the music side, being an original musician, writing, recording, etc., and believing in the mission of Mile of Music and having wonderful memories tied to the festival, playing every year of it with all my various projects. And actually my first child was, my wife was pregnant during the first Mile. So watching my kids grow up as a part of this, and they're becoming musicians in their own right, and having this facility that is a community gathering space that brings along the arts, dance, live music, now coffee as well. We're big believers in the human experience, connection, and what better way can you connect than having live music and really dialing into a performance where somebody has created art and you get to share that experience together. So it's really something we're excited about. And so far, the Mile Down the Road series has been great here.
I will point out, as nice as all that sounded, that the first child was not named Miley. Where you would think she could have been, being
very true. Yeah. We have a picture of Dana pregnant on the Lawrence Chapel stage, and we look at it often and go, "Yeah, Miley could have really worked, but we went with Stella."
Well, my daughter wasn't going to name theirs Miley if it was a daughter either. So. Yeah.
So, Dave, how did the curate the specific lineup for the event here on May 29th to match the atmosphere, the acoustics, great acoustics in this building, and the history of the famed Crystal Ballroom?
Yeah, it's a pretty easy connection for us because if this space were located in downtown Appleton, it would be an obvious Mile of Music venue for all kinds of reasons. But just the history of it, the wooden floor, the way it soaks up the sound and so forth. We don't have to do a whole lot to it from a production standpoint. We don't have to bring in a big system or don't have to do a lot of fixing of this or fixing of that or prepping for this. And so a lot of our artists over the 13 years of the festival, we've had 1,200 plus artists that have played the fest. A lot of them are 1,300 actually plus. A lot of them are acoustic in nature. Though this space can also do full bands, and we have done some bands in here, acoustic is a no-brainer. And so when it came to this next part of the series, just happened to be that it was also a timing where I had talked with Dan Rodriguez quite some time ago. Dan is one of our, I would refer to him as probably one of our more iconic artists that have played the festival. He's out of the Twin Cities. He's played it a number of times, played Appleton a number of times, does some amazing house concerts in the region, and so he's built up quite a following. And it just happened to be his birthday weekend. That Saturday is his birthday, and so we had talked about a show, and I said, I think it'll either be at Gibson or it'll be at Crystal Ballroom at the time, because it happened to be where at the time we were talking maybe not Saturday, but Friday. Well, that naturally worked out. And then it was just a matter of rounding out the lineup. But we also then looked at it and said, okay, we're just in the process of finalizing, and we just have finalized in the last couple of weeks, the full transition of Mile of Music, which started out as a for-profit, just an operation we threw out there and went after and invested a lot of time and effort into it as a marketing firm, Willems Marketing Events. It went from that just launch into a hybrid where we were for-profit and non-profit, and now we are officially non-profit, 100% umbrella through Mile of Music, Inc., the newly named Mile of Music, Inc. And so all of that was happening at the same time. We thought, well, why don't we make this one a little different and make it into more of a benefit show? So it is a little different. It's not just a straight, ticketed show. We're doing tables, and everything's at a little bit of a premium price, and it's intended to be, and we were fortunate enough to make it work by having some underwriters that came on board, show hosts we call them, that has worked very well and will be part of our future model for benefit shows we'll do to support the now 100% nonprofit of Mile Music Inc. And so the show hosts, without really any arm twisting, as you know, just the way we're doing technology here with this podcast, but it was kind of from the lounger at home, sending out some text to some of our fans who I knew were Dan Rodriguez fans or Ben Moana fans, and I think I sent out 4 texts and got 3 yeses. And then Mary and I jumped in too. So we've got the entire lineup, as well as the sound, as well as the a little bit of the cake, stuff like that we're going to be doing is paid for and covered. And so 100% of what people purchase with their ticket will go toward the nonprofit, toward Mile of Music Inc. And so that's we're excited about that, and that's kind of the hopeful model we have for these fundraising efforts. We're going to be doing some in the fall with some of the bands from the festival coming back to play encore shows in the fall, and that'll be at a variety of different places in all likelihood, whether it's the chapel or the ballroom downtown, or likely do another show out here that would be in a similar ilk. I think that for us, it's a no-brainer to make connections with spaces that we can do music very well in. I think I've said this many times, one of the really, what makes this all workable in terms of the huge investment that's put into it, the huge effort by fans, by artists, by everybody else, is the fact that each of the pieces has kind of fallen into place, and they've all expressed a willingness to do their part. And whether that's the artists, whether that's the fans, whether that's the production team, whether that's the volunteers who come to support the festival. But it is driven by the fact that we know now that we have all these artists that will show up and deliver. And that's breaking it down to a very rudimentary level, but that's really what it's about. If you don't have confidence in what you're presenting or what you're sharing, it makes it a whole different ballgame, right? And so, yeah, can you have issues? Can you have trouble? Can you have technical problems? Absolutely, and we have them every year at the festival. We address them when we're doing sound check here at the ballroom. You work through things. Dan Rodriguez sounds different than Ben Moana sounds, and sounds different than Katie Dahl sounds. And so how do we address that? But we know that we're very confident that this can be done. And the other cool part about this is that original music, and especially the acoustic original music, can be pretty portable. You can with the right sound systems and the right gear and the right artists, you can take it And that's one of the things that's really become cool about the festival is we do a lot of music on the go where you're walking through the festival and there's someone playing in the hotel, and people love that. People absolutely love that kind of feel of discovering an adventure, and that's what this place brings too. Is not a lot of people, more people now are getting familiar with the Crystal Ballroom and getting familiar with St. John, and that's pretty cool. So I don't know that we're going to be able to help put St. John on the map the way I think we've helped put Appleton on the map, but I think that there is some of that reality that is possible.
A matter of scale. Right?
Absolutely, it's a matter of scale.
So, Eric, from your perspective, how does hosting a contemporary original music showcase differ from your regular programming, like ballroom dancing or hosting weddings?
Hosting weddings too, yeah. It's got its own unique vibe, that's for sure. Obviously, just from a logistics standpoint, this original live music series is really based on a seated environment with tables, as David mentioned earlier. So what we do, this tall ceilings, beautiful tall windows, original hardwood floor, all those different things kind of make it a unique space in its own right. So when we transition from ballroom dancing, obviously there's no tables on the floor or line dancing. We have this place full of dancers who are either doing a stationary dance or a traveling dance around in a circle throughout the evening. So just from a logistics standpoint, adding chairs and tables, adding some candles, the mood lighting, etc., creates a really unique vibe for the artists and for the viewer, if you will. So there's not a bad line of sight in this facility. Sound-wise, again, acoustic-driven music really does well here, as well as full band. But the tall ceilings, being an artist myself, I know that you can adapt your performance to a room in terms of projection of your voice or your acoustic guitar, things of that nature. So, there's really not a bad seat in the house in terms of just sound, overall vibe. It's a really unique environment for an acoustic musician and then for the audience as well.
I would add to that. That's exactly right. Is there are very few venues that you can have where there are not issues with line of sight, or nooks and crannies where you can't see the full stage. All that sort of stuff. We even have those at Gibson when we have a full house. It can be tricky on the front stage. But I think that, and I would compare it that way, iconically to Lambeau Field. Not a bad seat in the house, but these seats are much more comfortable. So.
Yeah. All right. So this is, I guess, I'll open this to both you guys. With the Fifth Friday calendar occurrence being rare, is the show envisioned as a standalone special feature, or you kind of alluded to that you'd be doing some more in the future? Can you maybe explain that a little bit? And I guess Dave will start with you.
Yeah, and I think I certainly would envision that we would continue. Obviously now things change a little bit with it being a nonprofit community organization. There's a nonprofit board involved, and it's a kind of a group decision more so than it has been a smaller group decision up to this point. But I think the concept and the idea of a mile down the road and taking it, this one happens to be we're calling it a surprise birthday party with surprise in quote marks. It's the anti-surprise birthday party. It's anything but a surprise. We want everybody to know about it. We want people to know it's a celebration of Dan's birthday and his connection to Appleton, but then also the gift back is that we've been able to get the underwriting support so that the donation goes into the festival. We have Ben Moana joining in, and Ben is one of those artists who can sing the phone book and it sounds really good, and he can sing it anywhere. And then Katie Dahl comes up to us from Door County, and Katie's a Wisconsin folk icon. She's really kind of moving up the ladder in terms of the folk status here in Wisconsin, and she's just doing some really cool stuff and does trips over to Ireland and so forth where she performs and leads a group, and it's cool what she's doing. And so to bring those three artists together, they each have, in Ben's case, he's bringing Thea along to play cello from the Bellwether, and we have Dan. Megan will be with him, Dan's wife, and I think he's bringing the boys, and they're kind of making it an Appleton birthday weekend, which is pretty cool. But Megan will join him for part of his songs and part of his show, and then Katie will do her thing. So it's a pretty cool series. I think looking into the future, I think they'll all be different. The shows will be different. Maybe the header is a little different. In this case, it's this surprise birthday party, but another one might be strictly mile down the road, or another one might be a different activity. I don't think it's going to be limited necessarily to the Fifth Friday idea. That just was something where it kind of made sense to look at kind of giving that a moniker. So that would be kind of my thought in the process. And of course, Eric does other music out here as well. So.
Yeah, and it works well for our scheduling based on our Friday nights. We typically do, besides the Fifth Friday, we have a rotating schedule of dances every week. So it's either a line dance or a ballroom dance that are happening on Fridays. So with the Fifth Friday being open, typically that's what we've landed on this year. But to Dave's point, absolutely any other days we can definitely look at. And
we did a Sunday afternoon.
We did a great matinee. It was definitely, it goes back to that different vibe of, this is a very versatile facility, obviously built in 1928, and all the different functions it's had, daytime, nighttime, weddings, live music, line dancing. As long as we have some sort of gathering where we can make somebody get a smile on their face and take something away from it, from that human connection, that's our goal with every event here.
I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit here. And Eric, I'll go to you with this question is, what's traffic and the traffic flow and parking going to be like for this event here?
Yeah, we've got ample parking, both parking lots and street parking as well, right on the corner of County B and BB here in Calumet County. So obviously walkable as well for folks who are sort of in this area. There's plenty of folks who do make the trip. I see a lot of walkers out here as well. So a lot of parking opportunities, very easy to navigate. North, south, east, west. We're very centralized, located from, everybody from the lakeshore, south to north. I mean, we've got people who come in not just for the Mile of Music events specifically, but for dancing and weddings. It seems we draw from the state and beyond, which is very interesting, and very surprised at the number of people who are making a trek from south of Milwaukee or even the Chicagoland area just for dancing. So when we show them that there's a live music event that is something curated by something as well known as Mile of Music, where the product is going to be amazing, definitely expect a good amount of people here. And again, very easy to navigate. County B and BB right at the corner.
And Dave, you're an Appleton guy, like me. When I told people I was going to be working in Calumet County, the thing was like, that's so far away. You sure you want to do that? I mean,
you had to drive a block to get to Calumet.
Pretty much, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, from your perspective, how easy it is it to get out here? I mean, it's.
Yeah,
I shouldn't even say out here.
Well, the very first time we talked about doing a show, when we chatted, and I said, well, let me come out and take a peek. I put the timer on my phone, and I left my house, and it was a 20-minute drive, and that's only because you have to navigate stoplights and stuff getting out of Appleton. If you didn't have to do that, it would have been about a 12-minute drive probably, but it was somewhere in that 18 to 20-minute range, and that's from the south side of Appleton, obviously, so that helps a little bit, but I think I've done the same thing from downtown Appleton when I've come out here, and I think it's right about the same amount of time. Again, it just depends on what kind of traffic you hit. So It's an easy drive. I think for everybody, when they're getting outside their comfort zone, maybe, like if there's music fans who strictly go to music in Appleton or in downtown Appleton, there's a little bit of that, I have to drive to go to that show. I know the folks who've come out here for our other shows we've done have loved it, have enjoyed the drive, and I know many of them stopped in on the way here in Sherwood to have some food and then came out to the show. I think one of the reasons why we timed the show at 6:30 and 7:30, 6:30 door, 7:30, because we wanted people to be able to stop after work and grab something, a bite to eat or something if they wanted to, and then come here. They have enough time to get here by the start of the show itself. So no issues for us at all. It's been I think it's perfect for what we had envisioned a mile down the road to be. We created that name because we also thought we had people like down near Milwaukee that were saying, could you do a show down here? And it still works. It's just it's obviously a little more tongue-in-cheek perhaps when you say a mile down the road, but you're going 90 miles. This is, I think, an example. And, we were talking to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which obviously we have a great relationship with, Fox Cities Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then now with Calumet County, but the idea of doing something more throughout the Fox Cities with the Mile brand, and that's just something that I think will evolve over time. And we have to make sure that we're strong at the core with the festival and the funding and all that sort of stuff. Every year's been scramble just to get to break even, and that's, so we've kind of been surviving, and we need to go from surviving to thriving, and that was the idea of let's gift this to the community. It's a nonprofit now. It'll be around for the future. Folks who want to support will know where the money's going. They'll know how the money's being stewarded by the nonprofit board. So now we can maybe make that leap from just getting by financially. It's been a successful series, but a successful brand, but now we need to make it more financially viable because, again, it's a free festival. And so that has spurred other things, and I think some of these little series like A Mile Down the Road and stuff, I think that's just bringing the vibe and bringing the joy of what's been created to other areas, other communities. So it's not just a downtown Appleton thing. Downtown Appleton will be the driver for lots of obvious reasons, and I have always felt this, the real nut of this whole thing at the very beginning was a meeting with downtown Appleton businesses about trying to do something that put people into their businesses, not out on the street, which we're famous for, which are great events. Mm-hmm. And then for me, as a small business in downtown Appleton, in my firm, it was really about how do we take that kind of that approach, and how do we continue to make our downtown, what's missing in terms of how do we make our downtown stronger? Because I've always felt, bottom line, for communities, I've always been a community guy, but I've always felt that communities are stronger if they have a strong downtown or a strong core, no matter where the community is. And so that was the real basic idea behind creating the event, and I'm pleased that after 13 years that's what it's done.
Eric, this is your home ballpark, so to speak. I mean, you when you play here, what do you appreciate about the building, the facility when you play here?
When I put my artist hat on through that lens, it's again, it goes back to those high ceilings. Being a vocalist as well as a guitar player, there's something about being able to project your voice in a way when there's not as much of a critical need for amplification. So to the layperson, where you have a microphone and you have a powered sound system that's pushing out air and pushing out that sound, you're doing that physically in a room like this. It's very easy and natural for someone like me to just open up a little bit more than usual and really let my creative juices flowing and that connection happen between the visual component of this, which is the audience. So making that connection, this room really, it's one of my favorite places to play. Obviously, I'm very biased now being the owner for 3 years of it, but just having that opportunity to not only practice here and write here, be inspired by the facility, but also seeing the artists, all the Mile artists that have been here so far, as well as some of the other live music that we've had. You can tell, I've had conversations with them about, wow, this sound is amazing. The monitors are dialed in. I can hear it without the acoustics are just driving that. You can hear it bounce off the wall just ever so slightly with a natural reverb. Something that's a very warm sound, and it's very aesthetically pleasing to the audience as a listener. So hearing that feedback from artists as well is a really cool takeaway. So.
And
Dave, from your perspective, what do you think this facility brings to the artists as far as appreciation?
Yeah, well, it definitely brings all of that, but I also think a lot of our artists they're into experiencing history, experiencing culture, experiencing community, and so to find to be driving and then to come across the place and then to see it and go, oh, that looks pretty cool, and then you come in and say, okay, it's more than pretty cool, it's really cool. I had that same experience when I first came out here, and then shortly after, my daughter was talking about where they were going to get married, and being the dad who is an ideas guy, I had to be very careful. I had to tread very lightly on throwing the idea out. It was almost like I slid a piece of paper over in front of her, kind of thing. But she was talking about what they were looking for, and I was like, it's the perfect spot. And so I said, well, you should stop and talk to Eric and Dana as part of your. I just texted them, and they are going to be doing weddings. They haven't gotten to one yet, and so she was the first wedding out here, and because they walked in and they were like, "This is the place." We walked out the door, and she said, "This is the place." And so we had to play it cool because we had to negotiate the price and stuff. So we kind of acted like we didn't really like it, but
of course.
But no, they were the first wedding, and they just came out a couple weeks ago with the baby, their first baby, and that was cool, and had a chance to chat with Eric and Dana. So that experience with the piece of the wedding piece was very similar to what our artists experienced when they come out here, just from an experiential standpoint as you come out, and it's just, and it's, at the top of the hill, and it's just got the whole vibe to it. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those conversation pieces with the artists as well, of course, being an older building, a couple of people like Kurt Gunn as an example, who's a great mile artist, always nudges me a little bit. Hey, are there any haunting stories here? Was kind of poking the bear on the age of the facility. And are you sure you've never heard anything weird at night? So that was a pretty fun artist takeaway as well.
Am I safe to be here?
Yeah.
Have there been tickets made available yet at this point?
I think they went on sale at the end of the day yesterday to through the mile platforms. We haven't hit it everywhere yet, but it went through the mile platforms, and we'll be mentioning it on the Gibson website as well, and getting the word out that way, and then sharing the link with others to be able to Calumet County for Eric and be able to do it. So we sent that out at the end of the day yesterday.
What are you going to cap the number of sales at? 'Cause
Well,
I'm pretty sure you'll sell out.
I think, well, the tricky part, again, because it's a premium ticket, that will probably influence things a little bit too. So we have both, you can buy a table, you can buy individual seats. And so the beauty of this is we have the tables on the exterior here that we can utilize, which is neat, as well as some tables that we'll use up toward the front in the area here. So we're hoping that we can fill the place, which would be somewhere between 150 and 200. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a really intimate setting then too for people that have not been here.
Absolutely.
How does that lend to the performance and that from the artists? That
huge piece of it. Yeah.
For sure. That energy is something that you just naturally build off of. It's almost like contagious. You can feel the vibe. You can feel people dialed in. You feel those eyeballs on you, and when you have that connection as an artist, it's really special with the audience.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of lights shining into the artists' faces and stuff here, and so they can see the audience. The audience can easily, obviously, see them, and so there is that connection that's made. Yeah.
So Eric, what time are you talking? 6:30 or doors opening is what the
doors.
plan is at this point.
First performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then Dave, is there going to be official Mile of Music merchandise or other merchandise available that's coincide with the event?
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to do some door prizes. We're going to do some fun, for folks that are attending, and we always try to do a little bit of fun that way. We are going to be doing a 50-50 raffle for the nonprofit, so I think that'll be another way for us to bring in some dollars and to create some excitement. I think the folks who are here for the show, we're going to keep it simple, and it'll be like probably for this much money you get a ticket, or something, or we'll still do the all the 30 tickets for whatever, but because I think that makes it fun too. But I'm trying to think. I don't envision everybody having to pull their tickets out and read through them while we're doing the announcement. I'd like it to be simpler than that. You know what I mean? But we're going to have some fun things, and we'll have we have to decide if we're going to have a actual birthday cake for the surprise birthday party, or if it's going to be cupcakes. Make it a little easier for everybody. Probably be the latter when it's all said and done. But I did. It's funny when you do events, you look at little things, and we had a caterer one time at an event at Gibson. They brought in a cake for I think it was a wedding cake for one of the weddings we did there, and it was a little simple genius thing. Is the cake was all cut into pieces, and then the forks were stuck into the top of the piece of cake, and I thought, that's pretty darn smart. There's no handling of anything. The napkins were tucked under the plates, and so
just ready to go.
You just went and you grabbed and you went. So you think of weird little things like that when you're doing events. Mm-hmm. We've obviously stolen that idea, but I mean, so the whole cupcake thing now, you can still do a cake. It's just a little more work involved in getting it ready and stuff. But I think it'll be, and then of course with 3 artists, and Dan being the featured artist who will play a longer set, it's going to be a full night of music. So we're going to have to keep things moving along pretty tightly for that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and of course we have a full bar available, so full cocktail and beer, wine service, plenty of non-alcoholic options as well available. So we want to make sure we keep guests nice and hydrated. And
so people stop for dinner, come on out here, enjoy the after dinner drink here, and then also have dessert with the cake. Correct?
Right.
Yeah. Is this going to be recorded at all in case you sell it? When you sell out, is it going to be live streamed?
I don't know if we're going to do that or not. Gary Bomber will be doing the sound, Bomber Sound Productions, and Gary's a veteran on the scene and is always takes his craft very seriously. So we always know we're going to have a quality sound evening with Gary, and we haven't actually talked about the recorded piece. Typically we record everything that we do. I think it's a little bit different when you're doing a portable kind of, on the road kind of a show, but I'm guessing we probably will. We have not talked about whether that would be something we'd make available. Long term, we've recorded a lot of the stuff that we've done at the festival over the years, especially at certain venues. And as we roll into the really full nonprofit status, we envision that people who support and our music makers, as well as other folks who support our Adopt an Artist level, our Sponsor a Set level, that they'll have access to some of that content when, like, the festival's over and stuff like that, which I think will be a really nice new piece of the equation for them.
So any 50-disc special
Right,
event, Mile Music.
Do an infomercial.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. Eric, I guess I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the singing and songwriting piece of this, then for yourself as well. Do you see the idea of the original music showcases? How important, I guess, is that to you as an artist to have events like that like Dave and the group has organized over the years here in our area?
Extremely. Going back to my youth and seeing other local musicians who were 3, 4, 5 years older than me when I was a 12-year-old who was just getting into learning how to play an instrument, seeing somebody in our town, in our area, our community, that obviously take their craft very seriously. You could tell that they're creating. They weren't just playing someone else's song, which, not taking away from that, I also, one of my other hats is doing that as well. I love playing other people's music, but there's something very spiritual and rewarding as being a creative force, an artist in and of itself. And it coincides with Milan music in the sense of that's 100% original music that's being created by humans together. And you're taking something from scratch. It could be an idea. It could be something as simple as just, a thought or a past experience that you have, putting those words into a melody, figuring out a lyric that's going to match that melody, adding different instrumentation, and then bringing that to the public and sharing that experience with people. Milo has succeeded to that in droves since day one. I've seen it personally, obviously, as an artist myself, and having that connection at various venues up and down College Avenue for the 13 years. But seeing artists from across, pretty much the world now, not just other countries, people are coming, artists are coming from all over the place. And when they come to this town and come to this area, they are reacting to receptive audiences who are hungry for that experience. They're basically hanging on to every word because they don't know it. Like, they don't know a song that they've heard on the radio. These are artists that they may have not ever heard before, but they're experiencing that new lick, that new piece of melody, something that just kind of makes them raise their eyebrow and go, what is next here? This artist has a beautiful voice, or they have this beautiful, style of playing guitar or this instrument, but when that is all happening at one time and you're able to connect in various different environments, and now with the Crystal Ballroom having some of these Mile events as well, it's a really neat component of humanity to be able to connect on that level between artist and listener. And, just knowing that we're a part of helping to raise some money to keep the Mile experience going for years to come is something that is very special to me on a personal and professional level as an artist.
Yeah, and we'll be doing shows out here as we progress, like we had previously, where it's not as high of a ticket price and all that sort of stuff. And then there's still a fundraising component, but the fundraising component's a smaller component, like the 50-50 raffle, or there's a tip drum, and they can throw some money in the we call it the giving drum, which goes toward whatever nonprofit is associated with that particular event or whatever. And we do that a lot at Gibson with the community word in their Gibson Community Music Hall, and so we'll be continuing to do that as well. So not everything that we would do here or another space would necessarily have to be a full-on fundraiser. This one just kind of came together nicely as that opportunity because of the availability of Dan to be able to come and play it. And Dan, like I said, has a strong following. And back in January, he did, for the second year, did 4 residency shows at Gibson, 4 Fridays in a row. In fact, when we had the last Mile Down the Road, we also had Dan over at Gibson, and both shows did very well. And were just really cool vibes. But his 4 shows typically he does in January sell out, And so this is a good timing. It's 5 months later, and the chance to have him come back into town worked out well. But one of those shows that we did there, Ben Moana opened for him as well. So in this case, Ben's, what we typically do is you have your opener, you have your featured, and you have your headliner. Katie has been our headliner at Gibson before. In this case, she's coming to do some opening songs. She's, you think about these artists and where they're coming from, just in the last month or so, we've had, at Gibson, we've had artists. Well, next Wednesday we have a trio from Brooklyn, New York. We had, last night we had an artist from Jefferson City, Missouri, who's played around the country and has been on CBS's The Road TV show that was on this past winter. But we've had a trio from Mongolia. Actually, they were from Tuva, which is southern Russia, but just above Mongolia, bringing their own instruments in and playing throat-singing folk music from Tuva. We've had artists. We have an artist from just off of Seattle coming in next week, and the trio of duos we have coming up is Portland. So the Oregon. So the point being, as Eric said earlier, these artists are coming from all over the place, and probably the most prideful part for our team, I get to hear it more than they do because I'm typically at all the Mile stuff and I'm at all the Gibson stuff, but when the artists talk about how much they're looking forward to that spot in Appleton, the artist last night was saying, thank you for not all being on your phones. Thank you for not chatting while we're playing. Thank you for not, I think he made a couple of jokes about throwing stuff at the stage or whatever. Or throwing frisbees or whatever the case might be. No chicken wire at your place. Right, there's no chicken wire, yeah. We've thought about it. But the idea being that they really want to come here, and when they get here, and that's the most prideful part, without a doubt, is when the artists say it and when the fans come up to me and say, hey, my daughter and her husband just moved back to Appleton with their 2 little kids because they said Appleton's cool again. And when you hear that, and you know that those people got their grandkids back in town, that's a pretty special feeling. And so those are the reasons we're doing this, and those are the reasons when we had to make a decision here, okay, Dave, what are we doing with the festival? Is it going to get sold to somebody who's going to come in and change it significantly right before I even leave the room, that kind of thing? Or are we going to gift it and make it part of the community for the future? And it was a pretty easy decision. It was just not an easy process, but it was a pretty easy decision. If we wanted to stay adventure and discovery and to stay pure and to stay true to what we're doing. I remember year 2 after the second festival, there was, the party was always at Spats in the parking lot. Bill and Julie threw a party, and it was the parking lot was full, and the bands were, there was an extra thing, and the bands were jamming, and I was going into Spats, I think probably going in to use the restroom, and out came one of our music fans, and he had been very helpful in the merchandise that year and helping make all that happen. He stopped me dead in my tracks, and he goes, this was amazing. It was the second year, and he goes, this was amazing. He said, but how do we keep this from becoming, and he used an expletive, a blank fest. How do we keep this from becoming a blank fest, and he mentioned the biggest, multi-venue festival there is in the country anyway, down in Texas, and he mentioned that event. He said, how do we keep it from becoming that? How do we keep it from becoming? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, so commercial, and so everything you turn around and stuff, and it was like, and I was feeling pretty good about the fact that we got the festival. Yeah. And I was like, okay, but I thought, you know what, that's a very poignant, spot on question. In 8 words he asked that question, and I said and I just said to him that'll be a goal. And then I shared it with the team, and we decided right then and there, focus on focus on artists that you don't know but you should, all those things, because we've been dabbling with bigger name artists coming into town and all that sort of stuff, and you could see the level of effort involved in that, and the cost and all those things. And if you want a free festival, you're not going to be able to do a free festival. And then right after that is when that blew up, where all the bigger names were playing huge festivals and playing for crazy amounts of money. Mm-hmm. And the Summerfest budget went from this to way up here, and we looked at it and said, but that isn't us anyway. That isn't Appleton. Let's make it something where the artists want to come to Appleton, and that's just proven to be a really good mantra. And so I give credit to Todd for having said that to me, because it really was an initiation of the concept of how do we try to keep it this way 15 years from now. And we're almost 15 years from now at this point. And I think we get compliments on that all the time. And so I see the mile down the road, tying it back into what's coming up. I see that as an extension of that same concept, of that same idea. You know, we're not going to come out to Crystal Ballroom and do a 30-day, or 8-day festival that's going to be, all about what this or that. It's going to be doing some really specialty type events and doing them really well.
Absolutely. And keeping to your point of having that listening room environment where we're hoping people will stay off their phone, they experience this with their own eyes, get inspired. Because some of those grandkids that are moving back to Appleton or the area, hopefully they're going to be the next original musician that is hopefully playing a festival in 15 years. So it's all about that human experience.
I have a vision that we were creating with the full umbrella nonprofit. We're creating a group called the Band of 50, and that Band of 50 will be 50 people that will be connected and will attempt to help make sure we get to mile 50. So it'll be a group of people of all ages that some of them will be here 37 years from now. Some of them won't. But my joke to the group as we're forming it, to each one of them, is my goal is that the new grandson, our first one, his name is Marshall. And so my comment was, my hope is that at mile 50 he can be the grand marshal of the of the festival in some fashion. Maybe he'll be an artist, maybe he won't. But the idea being, how do we secure it, and then how do we secure the things that we're doing as I'll use the term ancillary, but how the extra mile stuff, because that's what it falls under now, is called extra mile. I think we've referred to it as Mile the Music Presents in the past. That probably will become extra mile, just because the idea is let's do stuff outside of the festival throughout the year, which we've done. Rhythms and Brews, Concerts in the Courtyard. We're going to continue doing that, but also some of these very specific events. In fact, we're kind of waiting. I was just looking at my phone before, only because we're waiting for the NFL schedule to come out today and tonight, because that influences what we can do at the hotel. Because the hotel has been such a great partner of ours. And so if we want to use the ballroom, want to do some things, it has to be kind of worked around the visiting teams that are coming in and so forth. So
it's always an exciting time when I worked down at, I had an office back in the day, and down at the Paper Valley, it was Radisson back then. It was always exciting with the whole vibe going on with Mile, everything taking place. It was always a great way to spend your time.
Was the Red Lion for a while too, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I was there even for a short window there too, when it was the Red Lion. So
I think they're in a pretty good spot right now with the Hilton, and the beauty of that, and I've always said that what we've done would not be the same if it wasn't for that specific team at that hotel. Jay Schumerth, then Linda Garvey, Tyler's now involved as the lead person, but Linda's still our lead connection, and she's also the president of the new nonprofit board, Mile of Music Inc. So we have our partners involved and collaborators, and we want to do more and more. There was a strong Lawrence presence at the event last night, because our singer-songwriter went to the Lawrence campus in the afternoon and met with their singer-songwriters and did a session with their singer-songwriters, which was really cool.
Awesome.
And so just to continue to build that foundation so that we can evolve it. And the other thing is, we have tried not to. We actually, after growing as fast as it did, we actually pulled it back a little bit. We brought the number of sets, and that was really financial more than anything else. It was like, if we can't sustain it, we got to at least start to restrict it a little bit. But we restricted it in a way that I think really was not that noticeable. It's still when you're talking about 600 music sets over 4 days, that's still an awful lot of music. And then what we did was we added a lot more pop-ups and things like that are very easily done within the scope of the festival. So I see us doing more of this type of thing as an expansion here at Crystal, and then probably a couple of other locations around the Fox Cities.
Well, I have to ask Dave, if people are interested in wanting to get tickets or make a donation or just get more information about Mile and what's going on, where would you direct them?
Yeah, just to milemusic.com. It's a very simple, straight ahead website. The information, if it's not on there right now, should be on there sometime during the course of today. They'll have the information about this particular show coming up and then other stuff that we're doing as well.
And Eric, how can people find out more about the Crystal Ballroom? What's your schedule, your calendar, when live music's happening?
Yep, thecrystalwisconsin.com is our website. It's got information about the Crystal Ballroom, so that would be the line dancing, ballroom dancing, and wedding events, as well as live music. Also ties into the Crystal Coffee Shop, which is in our lower level, that is serving 6 days a week. And then also Rebel Dance Academy, which is our youth dance studio, ages 3 to 18, everything from youth hip-hop and ballet to tap, lyrical, jazz, contemporary, even gymnastics and tumbling as well up here in the ballroom. So 3 businesses in one, but all can be found at thecrystalwisconsin.com and on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Right. Well, thank you, Dave Willems and Eric Krueger, for being my guests on the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. The Fifth Friday event sounds really amazing. Looking forward to it. And listeners, thanks for tuning in to episode number 75. And please make sure you check out the other 74 episodes of the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. You can do that by clicking on the microphone on the homepage of travelcalumet.com. And if you liked what you heard today or on previous episodes, please help us spread the word on all the great things taking place here in Calumet County by taking the time to text a couple of friends to encourage them to listen to the Travel Calumet Original Podcast. Thank you for listening. Until next time.